Most people would never think to connect their bathroom habits with the health of their brain, but mounting evidence is forcing researchers, neurologists, and geriatricians to take a much closer look at how something as routine and mundane as nighttime toilet visits could be revealing a serious and silent decline in cognitive function. While frequent urination during the night, called nocturia, has long been attributed to aging, prostate issues, or bladder dysfunction, emerging studies are now showing a surprising overlap with early-stage dementia symptoms, particularly in individuals over 60. What starts as an innocent increase in nighttime trips to the bathroom can actually be an early alarm bell from the brain, signaling breakdowns in the complex communication pathways between the nervous system, the bladder, and the parts of the brain responsible for memory, coordination, and regulation of internal bodily functions. For many seniors, this begins subtly. Maybe they used to sleep through the night, but now wake up once or twice to use the bathroom. Then it becomes 3 or 4 times. They chalk it up to hydration or aging or medications. But what they don't realize is that the brain's ability to suppress bladder signals during deep sleep is closely tied to overall brain health. When this suppression starts to fail, it's often because neurodegeneration is already underway, particularly in the prefrontal cortex and brainstem, areas responsible not just for cognitive tasks, but also for maintaining autonomic functions while we rest. This is why researchers are now looking at nocturia not just as an inconvenience or urological symptom, but as one of the earliest possible flags for dementia-related changes. It turns out the brain and bladder are in constant communication throughout the day and night, using neural circuits and chemical messengers to determine when to go, when to hold, and when to ignore the urge. When these systems start to falter, usually due to subtle inflammation, protein buildup, or loss of neural insulation, the signals get misinterpreted. The brain stops blocking minor urges during sleep. This is not a random malfunction. It's a sign that deeper cognitive systems may also be compromised. Some seniors might begin noticing they feel more tired during the day. Their sleep is lighter, and they have difficulty concentrating or remembering details. They might attribute it all to poor sleep caused by getting up to urinate. But in truth, the process may be circular. The brain changes lead to nighttime urination, which disrupts sleep, which accelerates brain deterioration. It's a vicious cycle that many families and even healthcare providers overlook. And the tragedy is that by the time memory lapses or confusion become noticeable, the underlying neurodegeneration has often been progressing silently for years. That's why it's so critical to pay attention to the small signs, like changes in toilet habits, because they can tell us what's going on before more obvious symptoms arise. In fact, a number of longitudinal studies have followed older adults with increased nocturia and found they were significantly more likely to develop mild cognitive impairment or even full-blown dementia within 5 years compared to their peers with stable bladder control. Even more fascinating is that these changes occur regardless of gender, even though men are more likely to attribute them to prostate issues. While those issues can coexist, the persistence or worsening of nighttime urination despite treatment should raise concern. For women, especially postmenopausal women, the drop in estrogen affects bladder control. But again, that alone doesn't explain the strong link to cognitive decline that researchers continue to find. It's becoming clearer that the bladder-brain axis is one of the most underappreciated pathways in geriatric medicine. When you think about it, it makes sense. The brain governs every function in the body, including urination. When parts of the brain weaken, especially the areas involved in timing, inhibition, and signal processing, their first signs of distress may show up in places we least expect, like the bladder. So what should seniors and their families do when they notice these changes? The first step is awareness. Don't dismiss multiple nighttime toilet visits as just a normal part of aging. Keep a log of how often it happens, what time it occurs, and whether it's accompanied by other subtle signs like memory hiccups, word-finding difficulty, or increased irritability. Sometimes the signs are emotional, like increased anxiety or confusion about time or routine. Even feeling more disoriented upon waking can be a sign that sleep architecture is being disrupted by more than just a full bladder. It may be the brain struggling to cycle through deep, restorative stages. Researchers have also noted that people with early-stage dementia often start drinking less water because they're trying to avoid frequent urination. Ironically, this can worsen brain health, since hydration is essential for flushing toxins, supporting blood flow, and maintaining cognitive clarity. The fear of the toilet becomes a trap, leading to dehydration, which in turn increases brain fog, fatigue, and confusion, compounding the very problem they're trying to solve. This is why prevention and early correction are key. There are lifestyle strategies, nutritional approaches, and neurological techniques that can support both bladder health and cognitive function. But it all begins with the simple awareness that your toilet habits may be whispering a deeper message, and those whispers deserve to be heard before they turn into screams. That's why understanding the link between dementia and something as ordinary as going to the bathroom is not just eye-opening, it's potentially life-saving. When we consider how interconnected our internal systems are, it's no surprise that something as seemingly isolated as frequent toilet use at night could be a red flag for something much bigger happening in the body, especially in the aging brain. The growing body of research into the gut-brain-bladder connection reveals how complex the communication between organs truly is. What was once thought to be a simple process of bladder filling and emptying is now understood to involve multiple areas of the brain, including the frontal cortex, brainstem, hypothalamus, and even the limbic system, which plays a crucial role in emotions and memory. In a healthy young adult, these areas work in harmony to suppress bladder urgency during sleep so the body can enter deep, uninterrupted restorative phases. However, in seniors experiencing early neurological shifts, this balance is disturbed. The nerves responsible for sensing bladder fullness may become overly sensitive, or the brain's ability to filter and delay the urge may begin to break down. These subtle malfunctions often go unnoticed until the person is waking multiple times every night to urinate, thinking it's just what happens with age. But what's not always realized is how sleep fragmentation caused by these interruptions contributes to further cognitive decline. Deep sleep stages, especially slow-wave sleep and REM, are essential for memory consolidation, emotional regulation, and even toxin clearance from the brain. Disruptions to this cycle can impair these processes. That's why seniors who frequently wake at night often feel groggy, forgetful, or emotionally unstable during the day. What might appear to be normal aging or mild forgetfulness can actually be the beginning of deeper degeneration. There's also a biochemical angle to this entire cycle. As we age, melatonin production naturally decreases, and this hormone not only helps regulate sleep-wake cycles, but also influences bladder muscle relaxation. Lower melatonin levels may result in both poor sleep and more active bladder signals. Combine that with the slow deterioration of cholinergic neurons, nerve cells that rely on acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter critical for memory and muscle control, and you have a recipe for both cognitive decline and urinary dysfunction. Scientists are beginning to see these overlapping symptoms not as coincidence, but as parallel markers of early dementia. Another layer is the role of inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation, which becomes more common in aging adults due to factors like poor diet, sedentary lifestyle, and stress, impacts both the brain and the bladder. Inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein and interleukins are elevated in people with dementia, but they're also found in those with bladder disorders. The inflammation affects the brain's signaling capacity, slows down neurotransmission, and creates a kind of neurological static that interferes with the proper interpretation of internal messages. This is especially concerning because many seniors already have a higher inflammatory baseline due to undiagnosed or poorly managed metabolic conditions like diabetes or hypertension. The overlap between these conditions in both nocturia and dementia is profound. In fact, several large population-based studies have shown that individuals with type 2 diabetes are more likely to develop both bladder control issues and cognitive dysfunction. Why? Because high blood sugar levels damage nerves and blood vessels, including those that serve the brain and urinary tract. The nerves that tell the brain whether the bladder is full or not can become desensitized, or worse, misfire, resulting in unpredictable and frequent urges. Over time, the brain receives so many false alarms that its ability to prioritize real signals deteriorates. This constant interference can weaken brain circuitry, leading to loss of executive function, the ability to plan, think ahead, and inhibit impulses, which is often one of the first cognitive domains affected in early dementia. So while the trips to the bathroom continue and are seen as a minor inconvenience, the internal neurological damage is quietly advancing. It's no exaggeration to say that recognizing these signs early can be the difference between maintaining independence and gradually losing touch with one's surroundings, routine, and even identity. Families often miss these early clues because seniors are reluctant to talk about toileting issues, thinking they're embarrassing or just a part of getting older. But open conversations can save lives. If a loved one mentions they're waking up more than twice a night to urinate, especially if they also seem confused, have difficulty concentrating, or showing personality changes, it should be treated as more than just a bladder issue. It could be a brain issue. Even mood swings, paranoia, or increased sensitivity to sound or light can be linked to disrupted sleep and underlying neurological changes. The amazing part is that some of these changes can be reversed or slowed if caught early enough. Interventions that support both brain and bladder health, like specific forms of exercise, dietary improvements, stress reduction, and supplements that target neural inflammation, can stabilize or even improve symptoms. Cognitive training exercises, pelvic floor therapy, and guided sleep protocols have also shown promise in clinical trials. But again, the window for these interventions to be most effective is early in the process, not after the damage has compounded over time. That's why so much emphasis is now being placed on seemingly small symptoms. It's not about being alarmist. It's about using every available clue to protect the brain for as long as possible. Seniors who keep detailed logs of their nighttime urination patterns and note accompanying symptoms like fatigue, mood changes, or memory lapses can bring powerful data to their doctors. This can lead to earlier diagnoses, better care plans, and more effective interventions. Sleep studies, cognitive assessments, and even MRI scans can be considered if the patterns suggest deeper issues. But without recognizing the connection between bladder function and cognitive decline, these early signs are often dismissed until more severe symptoms surface. The irony is that the very thing disturbing the sleep, an overactive or mis-signaling bladder, is also part of the warning system trying to get our attention. And too often, we don't listen until the pattern becomes unignorable. As we delve deeper into the interplay between nighttime urination and cognitive health, it becomes even more evident that these aren't isolated bodily functions operating independently, but rather pieces of a larger systemic puzzle that, when disrupted, reveal much about the state of one's aging brain. The truth is, the brain's role in controlling urination is far more sophisticated than most people realize. Within the brain, areas like the prefrontal cortex, basal ganglia, thalamus, and the pontine micturition center coordinate to interpret signals from the bladder, regulate the urge to urinate, and execute voluntary control over the pelvic muscles. In seniors, especially those entering early stages of cognitive decline, this orchestration starts to falter subtly at first and more aggressively over time. The messages sent by the bladder about fullness may become exaggerated or distorted, leading the brain to believe the need to urinate is urgent when in reality, the bladder may only be partially filled. Over time, the brain starts to respond more reflexively, bypassing its usual filters and leading to increasingly frequent urination, especially at night when those filters are already dulled by fatigue and circadian fluctuations. In a healthy younger brain, these overnight messages are downregulated to protect sleep. But when this neurological modulation erodes due to aging or neurodegeneration, the result is fragmented sleep, reduced deep sleep cycles, and a domino effect on brain function. Now consider what happens when sleep is disrupted every 90 minutes to 2 hours, night after night. Not only is the physical body affected, but the brain becomes deprived of glymphatic clearance, the essential nighttime housekeeping system that flushes out beta-amyloid plaques and tau proteins, both of which are heavily implicated in Alzheimer's disease. Without sufficient deep sleep, the glymphatic system can't do its job efficiently. The buildup of these neurotoxins over time leads to inflammation, memory loss, and shrinking of key brain regions like the hippocampus, responsible for forming new memories. This is why researchers are now saying sleep is not just important for cognitive health. It's the frontline defense against dementia. And when a full night's rest is cut short by frequent trips to the bathroom, this line of defense crumbles. Moreover, there's also a hormonal dimension to the problem. As people age, their production of antidiuretic hormone, ADH, which helps the kidneys retain fluid and reduce nighttime urine production, begins to decline. This results in the body producing more urine at night than it used to, further exacerbating nocturia. What's fascinating is that lower ADH levels are not only linked to bladder function, but have also been shown to correlate with cognitive decline in some studies. It's a vicious cycle. Cognitive decline reduces bladder control, and frequent urination reduces sleep quality, which in turn accelerates further cognitive deterioration. And because these changes often occur slowly, both seniors and their caregivers may not connect the dots until the signs of dementia are more advanced. For example, a senior who once woke once a night to urinate may now be up 3 or 4 times, but still chalks it up to aging or drinking water late. Meanwhile, they start forgetting conversations, misplacing items, or repeating stories, subtle but telltale signs that the brain is under stress. Add to this the effects of dehydration from frequent urination, which often leads seniors to reduce their fluid intake, further compromising kidney function, blood pressure stability, and nutrient delivery to the brain. In fact, dehydration is a leading but often overlooked cause of sudden confusion and delirium in the elderly. This creates a complex feedback loop in which bladder issues contribute to cognitive issues, which then worsen the bladder issues, and so on. It's not just an inconvenience. It's a cycle that can quietly deteriorate the quality of life, independence, and long-term brain function. On a deeper level, some neurologists now believe that early signs of dementia are hiding in plain sight within the autonomic nervous system, which regulates involuntary bodily functions like heart rate, digestion, and yes, bladder control. Early dysfunction in this system, manifested by increased urgency, incontinence, or erratic bathroom habits, might be one of the first clues that the brain is starting to change. The vagus nerve, a major component of the parasympathetic nervous system that links the brain with the bladder, gut, and heart, plays a critical role here. When its function begins to decline, not only is bladder communication disrupted, but so too are digestion, heart rate regulation, and even emotional resilience, all of which tie back into brain health. It's no coincidence that seniors who begin experiencing sudden shifts in bathroom patterns also often report changes in mood, appetite, and sleep. These are early warning signs that the body's communication system is beginning to misfire, and ignoring them allows degeneration to continue unchecked. But here's where the hopeful twist comes in. These signs are also an opportunity for early intervention. Tracking bathroom patterns, especially nocturia, can provide doctors and caregivers with a window into neurological health that might otherwise go unnoticed until later stages. Simple logs of when a senior wakes up, how often they urinate at night, how much fluid they drink, and whether they also report confusion, mood swings, or memory lapses can provide crucial diagnostic clues. Armed with this information, healthcare providers can run cognitive assessments earlier, recommend brain-friendly dietary and lifestyle changes, and even initiate therapies designed to protect neurological function. Treatments like guided sleep programs, bladder retraining, cognitive behavioral therapy, and even certain medications can help restore the delicate balance between the brain and bladder. And this is critical because the sooner these interventions begin, the better the chances of slowing down or even reversing early cognitive changes. What's more, recognizing this link empowers families to take a proactive role in care. Instead of brushing off frequent toilet visits as just normal aging, they can begin asking the right questions, observing patterns, and advocating for their loved ones before the signs become irreversible. In this way, the bladder becomes not just an organ of elimination, but an alarm system, one that, if listened to carefully, could help save a senior's cognitive future. It may sound surprising, but these nightly interruptions are part of the body's quiet cry for help, an internal signal that something more important than a full bladder may be calling for attention. With all this information now clear, it becomes unmistakably evident that nighttime toilet visits are not merely a matter of aging or drinking too much water before bed. They're a red flag that our bodies are sending us, a complex message woven from changes in brain function, hormone balance, nervous system health, and even emotional well-being. And the tragedy is that so many seniors and their families overlook this message until the damage is well underway. But we don't have to. There are powerful, practical steps that can be taken starting tonight to interrupt this dangerous cycle and steer the trajectory of brain health in a more positive direction. First and foremost, prioritize sleep. Create an environment that supports long, deep, uninterrupted rest. That means turning off screens at least an hour before bed, keeping the room dark and quiet, maintaining a consistent bedtime routine, and avoiding stimulants like caffeine and alcohol in the evening hours. Just these small changes can increase melatonin production and improve the body's natural sleep rhythms, which in turn strengthens the glymphatic system that cleanses the brain. Next, consider gently retraining the bladder. This can involve scheduled toilet trips during the day to reduce urgency at night, as well as pelvic floor exercises that improve bladder control and reduce involuntary leaks. Many seniors are surprised to learn that something as simple as a series of targeted stretches and breathing techniques can restore lost control and reduce how often they wake up. Alongside these behavioral strategies, diet plays a key role. Focus on foods that support both brain and bladder health, like omega-3 fatty acid from fish or flaxseed, berries rich in antioxidants, leafy greens loaded with folate, and magnesium-rich foods like almonds or pumpkin seeds. At the same time, limit known irritants like carbonated beverages, artificial sweeteners, and excessive sodium, all of which can aggravate the bladder and increase nocturia. Hydration is another essential piece of the puzzle, but with a twist. Rather than gulping large amounts of water late in the day, aim to front-load fluid intake earlier, so the body has time to process it before bedtime. This helps prevent that urgent 2 a.m. wake-up call while still supporting kidney and brain function. Don't forget the importance of movement. Regular physical activity, whether it's walking, tai chi, water aerobics, or light resistance training, not only improves sleep quality and strengthens bladder muscles, but also enhances circulation to the brain and reduces the risk of neurodegenerative disease. Movement stimulates the lymphatic system, improves mood, and boosts memory retention. And of course, never underestimate the power of mental engagement. Seniors who stay mentally active through puzzles, conversation, music, reading, or learning something new maintain more robust cognitive function and often report fewer bladder control issues, likely because of better preserved neurological coordination between brain and body. If nocturia is already a nightly issue, it's crucial to seek medical guidance, not just for the bladder, but for potential underlying neurological concerns. Urologists and neurologists can work together to uncover the root causes, from sleep apnea to early-stage Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, and help implement a personalized plan that supports both dignity and independence. Remember, too, that medications may play a role. Some prescriptions for blood pressure, heart issues, or anxiety can actually worsen nocturia or contribute to cognitive fog. So a medication review with a physician is absolutely warranted if symptoms are growing. Emotional health can't be left out either. The anxiety and frustration that often accompany frequent nighttime bathroom trips can themselves disrupt sleep and cognitive clarity. Mindfulness practices, guided relaxation techniques, and supportive counseling can all help seniors and their caregivers navigate these changes with less fear and more confidence. And beyond all these physical strategies lies one powerful truth that is often overlooked: connection. Loneliness is one of the most toxic influences on cognitive health, and seniors who feel isolated are more likely to suffer sleep disturbances, depression, and accelerated decline. Being seen, heard, and supported has measurable effects on everything from bladder control to brain resilience. When families take the time to talk about these issues, yes, even the awkward ones, they shine a light into the dark corners where dementia often begins. They create a safety net of awareness, compassion, and proactive care that empowers seniors instead of sidelining them. So if your loved one is waking up 2, 3, or more times each night to go to the bathroom, don't brush it off as trivial or embarrassing. Look deeper, ask the right questions, make a few small but meaningful changes, because often it's in these subtle signs that the earliest warnings and the greatest opportunities are found. You don't have to wait for a formal diagnosis to act. You don't have to live at the mercy of tired brain and a restless bladder. There's a path back to balance, to strength, to mental clarity, and peaceful sleep. It starts with awareness. It builds through intention, and it flourishes in connection. At Healthful Living 60+, we believe in giving seniors and their families the tools to take back control over their health, their minds, and their future. Every video we share is grounded in the mission to illuminate the hidden patterns that quietly shape aging and to offer real, actionable solutions that can make life not just longer, but better. So if this message resonated with you, if you recognize yourself or someone you love in the experiences we've shared today, we encourage you to keep learning, keep asking, and keep showing up for your health. Because aging doesn't have to mean decline. It can mean empowerment. It can mean clarity. It can mean waking up rested, strong, and mentally sharp day after day. That future begins right here, tonight, with one small step toward understanding. Thank you for watching. This is Healthful Living 60+, where we believe that vibrant aging is not just possible, it's your right.